October 5th marks World Korean Day, a day that was designated back in 2007 by Seoul's Foreign Ministry to celebrate the contributions of overseas Koreans in their respective countries and to seek a greater sense of solidarity toward a broader global good.
Welcome to Issues and Insiders. Today, we have the pleasure of speaking with a pair of very special Korean Americans who are actively committed to better serving their communities and broadly to bolster ties between South Korea and the US. For more, I have Commissioner Steve Kang at the City of Los Angeles with me. Steve, welcome to the program.
Well, it's a pleasure and thank you for having me.
I also have US Congressional candidate David Kim with us. David, a warm welcome to you as well.
Thank you so much for having me.
Right, let's start off then with a brief self-introduction. Steve, do tell us a bit about yourself.
Sure, my name is Steve Kang, and as you introduced at the beginning, I have the pleasure of serving as a commissioner on the Central Area Planning Commission for the City of Los Angeles. I also hold different hats in our community. I'm also the board chair of the Korean American Democratic Committee, and I also work at a nonprofit called KYCC as the director of external affairs.
Right, I see. And David, what do you care to share with us about yourself?
Yeah, I am a second generation Korean American, son of pastor immigrants. I currently work as a children's court attorney. I've worked in different areas of law before, immigration, music, particularly right now. I work as a defender for parents in children's court, and I also happen to be running for Congress in California's 34th Congressional District, which includes a lot of historical Asian American communities, including also Koreatown, the largest Korean community in the US, arguably.
Right. Now, Steve, this particular year marks the 120th anniversary of the arrival of the first Korean immigrants to the US. What can you tell us about the contributions of the Korean American community to the US as a whole since then?
So this past April, I had the honor of attending a White House ceremony and a Washington, D.C. ceremony commemorating the 120th anniversary of the Korean migration and also the 70th anniversary of the U.S. and the Republic of Korea alliance. So when President Yoon visited the White House, I, along with many Korean Americans, gathered in Washington, D.C. to celebrate that historic meeting. But besides the politics, the fact that the U.S. extended a state visit to the president of the South Korean government sends a strong message that the Korean American community has grown and really evolved over the 120 years and made significant contributions from the arts to the culinary arts to academia and to politics.
Right. And David, what do you suppose is the secret, if I may, behind the steady growth of the Korean American society there in the U.S.?
Our Korean tiger moms. But a more extended answer would be definitely, I think, just the principles and values that our parents' generation or those immigrating even now carried from immigrating from Korea to here. I remember my dad saying, "Hey, do you know that Korea used to be the second poorest nation of the world?" And that's why we value so many things differently. And I think the resilience portion of it is really something that's inherent in anybody that identifies themselves as being Korean, and that's kept with the perseverance of trying new things, of being bold, of being the first of their family. And I know Steve has a lot of firsts, I do too, and other fellow Korean Americans do as well. And I think that's probably one of those secret ingredients behind the steadfast growth of the Korean American community here.
And Steve, what do you suppose is the secret behind the steady growth of the society there, the Korean American society, of course?
I think it's all about being Korean and Korean American. I think we have, what I tell non-Koreans is we have 눈치, which is intuition. I think that's very unique to our own culture and our identity. We're able to fast adapt to different situations and really make fast moving decisions that really results in positive impact in our community.
Right. Steve, what more do you suppose then can be done, perhaps, to pave the path to greater progress led by young Korean Americans in the U.S.?
I want to point to two main issues of greater engagement. I think the fact that we're an immigrant community and we still have first generation who are monolingual, primarily Korean speaking, and English is a barrier. as well as the younger generation who grew up as second generation like David Kim, but are not as connected to the community or the civic engagement aspect. So I think we need to increase awareness about civic engagement and greater engagement. And also, similar to other communities like the Jewish community and other ethnic communities, we have to build a pipeline where we incubate and really cultivate the next generation leaders. So we have more people like David Kim who are running for Congress, and also growing up in other sectors of our country as well.
Right, and keeping in mind what Steve had just said, David, what prompted your initial interest in politics?
I think for a lot of generations coming, as I mentioned earlier with my parents, my dad reminding me of the fact of where Korea has come to where they have been before. I think with that being said, our parents' generations, when they immigrated, they really had this 동네 사람들 mentality of they had this concept of care where you rotate each person and you pitch in, and there was when anything good happened, you celebrated with your neighbors. But I think because of the mentality of immigrating, assimilating, being able to fit into society, having your children also just focus on studying, being successful, in a way, I feel like that generation has sort of taken on that individualistic component of it and have left out the filial portion of it. And I think that's what sort of Mr. Stephen King has sort of touched upon, and definitely keeping that mentality in mind is what will continue that. And I think for my reason for running is we need to keep that intact. The reasons why our parents came here, the reasons why people continue coming here is that achievable? Is it really, if you put your mind to it, can you really achieve it? And where I see it right now, the conditions aren't leading to that. And so I want to help create conditions where we are able to still stick to that mentality of, hey, if I put my mind to it, I can do it. So helping create that world.
Right, where there is a will, there is a way then. Steve, I also hear you're the only Korean American commissioner within the Central Area Planning Committee there in the US, that is LA, of course. Could you walk us through your personal journey to your current post?
Sure. In Los Angeles, being the second largest city in America, the commissions are really a coveted role where, although it is not a full-time position, it comes with a lot of jurisdiction, with a lot of power and influence in specific jurisdictions. So, for example, the commission that I sit on, and I'm the only Korean American there, we make decisions on behalf of the city in terms of the alcohol licensing and a lot of the development projects, especially with real estate and gentrification. And what's unique about Central Area is it really has the economic engines of Los Angeles that anybody in the world would know, like Hollywood, Koreatown, and downtown Los Angeles. So this 5-member board dictates a lot of the development projects and a lot of the liquor and other business licensing within the city. And a lot of times luck has to play a role, but also the fact that our Korean American community has really grown and the strength has really evolved over the years, has really pressured elected leaders like our mayor and our city council to have people like me to serve on these commissions to represent the Korean American community.
Right, good to know. David, what have been the broader implications of the growing popularity of K content, including movies, music, and dramas, on the general US public perception of the Korean American community?
It's been phenomenal. Just one word to summarize it all. I remember even rewinding 10 years ago when I was trying to help Korean talent and artists cross over here into the States because I was still practicing entertainment and music, how it was so hard. When talking to people, it's like, you don't know Boa? Are you crazy? But now everybody seems to know the words BTS, Twice, etc. And not just music, but all around. And Korean, when you said Korean before, it was limited to Taekwondo or barbecue, but definitely it's beyond that. And I feel it's added to the discussion of how it's not just Asian American anymore, how there's different types of Asian Americans, and how we're not just a Pan-Asian group, and how Korean Americans are just a community as your community might be. And I feel that that has reflected in different ways, as Mr. Kang has mentioned. But it's definitely something that we want to continue pushing, just those that are in the community, and then also making that aware to others around that, hey, we're not stuck to certain stereotypes.
Right. And Steve, just last month, actually, we had the pleasure of speaking with a native Korean actor who became the first to play a Caucasian role on a Broadway musical. Now, as such, that being said, what are your words of advice, perhaps, to Koreans who are seeking to chart fresh courses beyond their own national boundaries?
I would tell them two things: be authentic and be very proud of your Korean American heritage. Because what I've been telling everybody around me, whether you're Korean American or non-Korean American, is that it's so good to be Korean American in America in 2023. Because when I first immigrated to this country in the mid-90s with my family, nobody knew or nobody could point to the country called Republic of Korea. Now, just like how David Kim mentioned with BTS and Blackpink and the rise of K-pop, everybody seems to know and everybody wants to join in on being Korean American and celebrating our culture. So I think it's time for us to finally embrace our identity and be proud of our heritage and all the things that come with it. And if we're authentic about that, I think you're going to get those roles in Broadway, and you're going to run for politics and win and become the first in all sectors of society.
Hopefully. David, what are your words of advice?
I mean, not to hammer the nail too much, but I would take the word authenticity from Mr. Kang's words of advice. I think really it comes down to authenticity, and with that, everything else comes naturally. You don't have to force it. So if you're really authentic about embracing who you are, that powerful version of yourself, that includes your identity and your roots. And so if that's true to you, then you're naturally inclined to learn about your roots, your history, and who you are in the background. And I feel that's what makes us become more powerful versions of ourselves. It's not dissecting certain portions of it, because you can't. It sums up all of us and of who we are. And so, yeah, I would totally echo the same. And I think that's what helps you push past the boundaries. Instead of you trying to push past the boundaries, let your powerful self do that. So embrace your identity.
Right. And speaking about pushing beyond your boundaries, Steve, could you tell us a bit more about your work with the Korean American Democratic Committee, where you are the board chairman?
Sure. David Kim is also on the board as well. So we work very hand in hand in partnership. So we really want to uplift our Korean American community in the principles of the Democratic Party, where we really help to incubate the next generation of leaders, but also to engage with other political leaders, whether they're Korean American or non-Korean Americans, to uplift. So for example, when the California Department of Motor Vehicles wanted to eliminate 25 language tests, including Korean, I rallied along with KDC members, with our state senator and assembly member to reverse that decision. And the DMV reversed that decision within 24 hours. And in 2023, we still have Korean language tests, where monolingual Koreans can take the driver's license test in Korean and have a driver's license in California.
Right, good to know. And David, could you tell us a bit more about your work with the committee that you share with Steve, the Korean American Democratic Committee?
Yes. I recently joined the Korean American Democratic Committee, and really props to Mr. Stephen Kang. He and so many other leaders here in the community here are really the ones doing the daily ground, day in and day out work, activists and organizers, and we're all respective in our own lanes and industries, with me and the community as a community lawyer. But I think kind of from now, it's really recognizing that, hey, here in Los Angeles, and I know I just moved on from your last question, but here in Los Angeles, there's a stronghold of what we can or can't do based on the representation that has been in place for decades. And I think it's a time to break past that status quo so that access is available to all communities, including the Korean American community that has been shut out. And so, yeah, it's just looking forward to what the near future and the far future might bring.
And Steve, before we end today, could you tell us a bit about your future plans?
Sure, I love community activism, and that's what I've been doing for the past 10 years here in Los Angeles. And as David Kim mentioned, and he's running for Congress to be the first Korean American to represent this area, I really want to really uplift our community from the ground up. There are so many issues. Despite the fact that LA has the largest Korean American population in America, we still lack the representation, and we're still not included at the decision-making table. So I would love to rally the community around different issues like language access, different other issues that relate to gentrification, and making sure that resources are provided equitably across all communities, including the Korean American community. So I'm very happy to serve on the commission, but also to serve as a nonprofit leader.
And talking about the future, Davey, tell us a bit about your plans.
So with that being said, this is not an effort that can be solely done. I mean, I wouldn't be able to run without communities' support and leaders already doing the work like Mr. Kang and definitely other people here as well who are doing the work daily. And it's a joint effort. So as a quick background, we did try running before. Last cycle, we won 49% of the general election vote. So we just lost by 1%. And so we're running one more time. And this time we hopefully really want to clinch that win. So that's what our future entails.
My best of luck to that. My hopes are with you, both you and Steve, of course. Thank you so much for making time to join us live at this hour. And Steve as well, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right, well, that is all the time we have for this edition of Issues and Insiders. Do join us again same time tomorrow. That is Friday.